going through my mind is I just keep going over what we need to do in that game to win. Growing up, I had a dream of being a professional athlete. When you come into the league, you think you have the talent to do it, and when you get there and you start proving yourself, it just becomes that much easier.
My God, did Marino thread that football in there?
I expected to do well. You have to physically be tough to just bring yourself back up off the ground after you take a big hit, and being mentally tough enough to get in that huddle, call the next play, and know that you can get it done. A great game for a quarterback is when you win. That's a great game.
Marino takes the snap from center. He's looking. He throws. Right. Touchdown!
Oh, courageous call!
Dan Marino, one hell of a job.
Dan Marino, with that touchdown, has broken another record. He has the granddaddy of them all.
I would say the heart of a champion is someone that when they're down and things aren't going as well, they can have the team rally around them to come back and win games for them.
Marino throws deep downfield. It is caught by Fryer. Touchdown! Touchdown Dolphins! Marino to Fryer!
What a game by Marino. You talk about championship courage. You talk about a will to win. A flame burns inside that man, Dan Marino.
In western Pennsylvania, legends are made the old-fashioned way. From the steel mills of Pittsburgh to the small lunch bucket towns along the Allegheny River, there are no shortcuts to success. These factory towns have forged a special breed of athlete through a rich tradition of football excellence.
Western Pennsylvania is probably one of the best, if not the best, high school football in the country. It's pretty impressive. I mean, it's serious, more so than baseball or basketball. Football is that, because you have a lot of small steel mill towns around Pittsburgh, up and down the rivers, and that's huge. A Friday night football game is huge.
From the time I could remember, I loved playing football, if it was in the street or if it was in the organized leagues or watching it on TV. I mean, I couldn't get enough of it.
Dan Marino learned the fundamentals of football from the man closest to him, his father. Dan Marino Sr. worked nights as a delivery driver for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
I spent a lot of time with him because I was off every day. I worked at night. I worked night turn all the time.
When I was younger, he was there for me when I needed him. He had a job where when I'd come home from school, he was home. He's a guy that, wasn't anything more than a high school football player, but he seemed to be a smart guy as far as teaching me how to throw the ball.
We had the opportunity to watch Danny play locally here, grade school, high school, and college, right in this 5-6 block area. We never did visit Pitt. I mean, we lived at Pitt. From our house, you could see the Cathedral of Learning from right in front of our house. It's like right there. So I guess through the years, and he used to go to Pitt games all the time because a lot of the fathers in our neighborhood were ushers at Pitt Stadium.
In the 1983 draft, the Miami Dolphins got a pleasant surprise late in the first round.
We had no idea of taking a quarterback. We'd been to the Super Bowl with David Woodley as our quarterback. But when it looked like Dan might slide down to us, that's when we started to really think about changing our direction. We'd thought about taking a defensive lineman with that first pick, but thank God we didn't.
Because scouts thought Dan had fizzled in his senior season at Pitt, 5 other quarterbacks went first, a development that could have rattled his confidence.
I just talked to him about halfway through, and I said, I'm going to tell you something. It really doesn't make any difference where you're drafted. You can play or you can't. You can play, so it doesn't make any difference where you go or who you go to. You're going to play for that team.
Dan proved his father right early in 1983. He looked impressive in relief appearances against both the Raiders and the Saints. So much so that in Week 6, Coach Shula decided to give the rookie his shot. But Marino's first start didn't begin fruitfully. Dan threw 2 interceptions in the first half and was constantly under pressure in the pocket as the Bills jumped out to a 14-0 lead. It looked like Miami's first-round pick was a flop until the second half, when Marino found the zone he would stay in for 17 years.
Marino drops the throw, has time, going deep up the sideline, man down, got it, 30, 25, 20, Dupo, they'll never catch him, touchdown!
Marino added 2 more touchdown passes, including a career first for a rookie named Mark Clayton.
Perfectly thrown pass by Dan Marino.
Miami lost in overtime, but the game marked a new dawn for the Dolphins. In the weeks to come, Marino would lead Miami to wins in 7 of their next 8 games. The critics who had knocked him before the draft were now comparing him to Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas. Yet for all the praise, it seemed Marino was simply relying on his instincts.
When Marino first started, he didn't know what in the hell he was doing. And he was just throwing the football. And we was just catching the football.
Even Dan admitted he didn't always know what he was doing.
I remember times when I'd come in the huddle, I wouldn't even have the whole play. You know, I wouldn't say it the right way. And Nat Moore, Bruce Hardy, these guys, I mean, you might not remember them now, but they were there and they were good players. They'd actually call the whole play for me. And I'd say, okay, let's run it on 2. And we'd go to the line and run the play. I mean, that happened quite a few times.
Marino became the first rookie quarterback voted to start in the Pro Bowl. But even then, he had his sights firmly set.
Well, the one thing I think it's necessary to be a great quarterback in the NFL is to prove that you can be consistent over a long period of time and you can win.
Dan's cool demeanor in the spotlight proved a necessity the following season. Quite simply because everywhere you looked, it seemed someone else had been hooked by the magic of Marino. Number 13 answered the attention by offering fans the greatest single season a quarterback has ever had, setting a new record virtually every single week.
You know, defenses didn't know what to do against Stan. They didn't know how to figure it out. They tried to blitz him, and we would beat the blitz, and then they'd lay back in coverage, and we'd beat the coverage, and, you know, we had all of the answers.
In addition to veterans like Nat Moore, the Marx brothers also stepped to the forefront in 1984. They were the perfect tandem for Marino. Mark Clayton went over the middle and made the tough catch, while Mark Duper stretched defenses well beyond their limits. With their help, Marino obliterated the old record of 36 touchdown passes in a season, finishing with 48.
I really didn't know too much about NFL records and how big of an accomplishment that was, but I do now, because that's something that will never be broken. Nobody's going to throw 48. That's a lot of touchdowns.
After also becoming the first quarterback to pass for more than 5,000 yards in a season, Marino soared over Seattle in the first round of the playoffs, setting up a showdown for the AFC crown against his boyhood heroes.
To be able to play in a game with a chance to go to a Super Bowl and play against the Steelers, it was special. And the fact that they still had Donnie Shell and Jack Lambert was still on that team, you know, guys I watched when I was a kid, you know, it was kind of neat.
Dan not only disarmed the famed Steeler defense, he dismantled it, throwing for 4 touchdowns and 421 yards. It was the greatest performance ever by a quarterback in a championship game, and the high point in a season in which he was also named the league's MVP. Dan Marino had not just arrived, he had conquered, and no one could have imagined his last shot at a title would come 2 weeks later in Super Bowl 19.
Well, there is no doubt in my mind after that game, I felt I would be back next year, the year after, and be in a lot of Super Bowls. You know, I felt that. And you kind of, you know, at the time, we kind of took it for granted because it just happened my second year, and you know, I think we took it for granted a little bit that we would definitely be back.
Let's go now, let's go. Let's get some movement on them, right? Get some movement. All right, let's go, let's go. Play with some urgency now. A little urgency. Let's go. Move, the yellow eye left. Zoom, pass, 57, slow. Z, deep, Lex, on 2. Ready? Set up. I was thrown to the back there. Keith Byers, right there. No, I was throwing to Keith Byers.
Hit 61.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to hit him. I'm trying to throw the ball to him.
It's a foul if you hit 61.
I'm trying to throw the
down only.
Yeah, well, right now, ain't no loss of down. We need all the downs we can get. Set hut!
A quarterback's toughness is on display every play. He is a target, standing in the pocket, holding the ball, while staring down the barrel of the oncoming rush.
Let's get a drive going, man. Let's get a drive going and score some damn points. You got the one-on-one, bump and run. You got to win.
Dan Marino had the mental toughness, and he had the physical toughness, and that's what made him one of the great quarterbacks of our time.
Dan Marino has to be one of the most fierce and tough competitors I've ever witnessed on a pro football field. A few years ago, they beat us in a very difficult playoff game in Miami.
He's looking to throw. He's back. He's under pressure. Fires. Complete touchdown to Ronnie Williams.
I go in to see Dan and congratulate him after the game. And I looked at him, and I've never seen a player with so many scars. Shoulders, knees, ankles, the Achilles, one calf is atrophied. And I'm looking at this guy, and I said, how could this guy possibly beat us? And the only reason he could do that is because of the size of his heart.
Intensity and determination cannot be measured. Marino was never afraid to show his fierce competitiveness. He was the first to criticize his teammates after a poor play, but also the first to congratulate after a good one.
If Dan had a bad game, it wasn't his fault. And I'd laugh about that, but he may have had a bad game, but it was the receiver's fault or the offensive line. Dan just had that belief in himself that, you know, he was that good, that if something wrong happened, it was because someone else didn't do the job. And it may have not always been that way, but in Dan's mind, it was, if it was a bad play, it was someone else's fault.
Let's go, man. Give me some time to throw a 5-yard out, a 10-yard out.
Because he had elevated himself as a quarterback and as a person to such a high level, there wasn't a negative feeling when Dan would, you know, yell at someone. They understand that Dan on Sunday was a very emotional, high-strung guy and fierce competitor, wanted to win at all costs. And I think players accepted that in Dan.
The problem is we're getting our ass kicked in the running game on 1st and 2nd down. We got to get better plays on 1st down. Come on now, let's quit feeling sorry for ourselves, baby. Let's do something.
The leader in a game is being positive as you can be all the time and improving when it's time to prove that you can succeed and win that game, to do it. And they rally around that. They get excited about it.
Even in his 17th season, Marino could still command the moment in the game's final minutes.
What a game this has been. Dan lobs one for Gadsden. He's open. He makes the catch at the 15. He's at the 10. Down to the 3-yard line. With a shotgun, they're coming with a blitz at him. Dan looks, throws it to the end zone. It is caught. It is a touchdown.
It was Marino's 36th fourth-quarter comeback of his career. From 1984 to 1993, Marino played in 145 consecutive games, something no other NFL quarterback has ever done.
Playing each and every week for 10 years straight is something that I was real proud of, because your teammates count on you. You're lining up every week, you're playing. The consistency factor.
And he always played with pain. His last 3 or 4 years, it was always something. But he always got ready to play. You can't keep Danny off the field. You gotta break something on him to keep him off the field. It's the kind of guy you want throwing the ball to you and leading your team.
Throwing into the end zone, O.J. McDonald. He made a catch. It's a touchdown, Dolphins.
In Week 5 of the 1993 season, Marino suffered a ruptured Achilles, an injury most thought would end his career. But with the same determination that would define his career, he underwent intensive rehabilitation and returned for the start of the 1994 season.
Marino slogging in the mud, back to pass. He throws downfield, has a man open. Mark Ingram has it at the 30. He is gone. Oh, touchdown!
Yes! Danny Marino is back, baby!
There were questions as to how effective Marino could be coming off a major injury at the age of 33.
He's looking, has time, throws into the end zone. Keith Jackson has it. Touchdown, Dolphins.
Oh, yes!
Marino takes the snap. He's under pressure. Dodges the rush. Now throws deep downfield. Has a man open. It's caught. Irving Fryer, touchdown.
The culmination of this remarkable comeback came on a 4th down and 6, late in the 4th quarter.
Marino throws deep downfield. It is caught by Fryer. Yes! Touchdown, Dolphins.
You talk about championship courage. You talk about a will to win. A flame burns inside that man, Dan Marino.
Dan has never had a problem poking fun at himself.
See, I'm a great golfer, so I can wear things like this.
A slave to fashion on the golf course, Dan donned a very different wardrobe when he was given the chance to pilot an F-16 jet fighter plane. Known for his air attack on the football field, Dan was about to reach brand new heights.
Here we go. There's your first 4 Gs. Oh, not so bad. There's 4. What do you think, Dean?
Oh, man. It's outstanding.
When they first took off and then they go straight up and then flip it all the way over, I said, oh my God. I'd have been still barfing 2 weeks later after one of that thing.
So where are we going now?
Probably about 1,000 miles an hour. You see okay?
Yeah, I can see fine, but it is heavy.
Yeah, you feel the G-suit pushing on your leg?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Miami Center. This is Thunderbird 7. Dan Marino wants to thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
T-Bird 07, you're welcome. Tell Dan Marino I said thanks for being such a great quarterback.
What's wrong with that thing?
You survived the whole flight?
A pilot every day and having fun doing that. And I loved it, but there's nothing like Sunday afternoons at 1 o'clock when you get out there and you're throwing a football in front of 70,000 people.
He has the quickest delivery in the history of the game.
No one can throw the ball like Dan Marino.
Truly the greatest passer of all time.
He's the best forward passer in the history of the game.
Greatness is difficult to quantify. It's a sense, a feeling. When you watched Dan Marino throw a football, you knew you were witness to something extraordinary. You had never seen anything like it before.
Dan Marino is a phenomenon. There just haven't been men like him.
Dan Marino was as close to a perfect
passer as I've ever seen. You just get mesmerized. The way he threw the ball was an art form. It was just a thing of beauty.
I've always just been in awe of the way that he was able to throw the ball so quickly with such velocity. Nobody else has ever been able to duplicate the way that he actually throws the ball.
You need arm strength. The distance is overrated. Arm strength is important. You have to throw with a velocity and accuracy or you're never going to have a chance.
He can throw the ball between defenders better than anyone I've ever seen, and he'll try to do it. He is aggressive.
And he did a lot of it on pure instinct. He just played football, almost like it was on the playground. In fact, once he and I were exchanging, I said, well, now what are you looking at when the ball snapped? What are you looking at on your first read? When do you look to your alternate receiver? He says, look, I just look for the open man, and I'm going to hit him.
He really never was, I would consider, like a student of the game, where he can go up and diagram the X's and O's on the board and draw coverage and tell you where everyone's going to be. But when it got game time and the ball got in his hands, he could see where everybody was. I really think he was the only guy I've ever been around that could really see from sideline to sideline. So the one thing that I believe set him aside was the ability to visualize where his people were going to be and see the coverage.
Dan Marino had tremendous peripheral vision. He just was tremendous in picking out the one-on-one situation and knowing where the weakness in the coverage was and attacking that weakness. A lot of people don't give Dan credit for making the quick decisions. And he did that, and then, of course, when he made the quick decision, that release just exploded. And it didn't take long for the ball to get there.
In the National Football League, the objective for the quarterback is to find the receiver who's matched man-to-man against a single defender. It's simple in theory, complex in execution. Marino intuitively recognized those individual matchups and exploited them with his quick arm and uncanny accuracy.
This is the man with the quickest release in the history of the game, and he had a rhythm to what he did. If we'll watch his drop, bounce, you see that ball is part of the drop, working with his hands on either side, bounce, throw. It's perfect timing of the throw and perfect mechanics, and he throws it with such ease, the defenders don't get any kind of a jump on it. Plus that, he's a little quicker on his feet than you'd think. Here's an example, avoiding to the left. Very difficult, avoiding to the left, getting back in a right-handed stance again. You see, he's back into a throwing position. So if you do open your left shoulder to avoid somebody, get your right hip back again, then you can deliver that ball with force. And it's a perfectly thrown ball.
In an era when mobility was assigned paramount importance at the quarterback position, Marino was always defined as a pocket passer. The label was unfairly restrictive and confining, for it failed to account for the most essential element of Marino's game, his great footwork and balance. No quarterback moved as well within the pocket.
You have to have great feet. You're saying that maybe I can't beat someone in a foot race, but as far as quickness and making people miss in the pocket and moving and creating things on your own, you have to do that, and to do that, you have to be a good athlete.
Once he got back into the pocket, he had the ability to move. Those quick feet moved around. He found the passing lane, and that enabled him to get away from the rush and get the ball off before the rush got there.
My movement in the pocket, I've always thought that I was very good at that, and being able to create within a small space, make people miss, and still be able to get off a good throw and make plays.
Dan Marino had great feet, the quickness to move from the rush, the quickness to find the opening to throw to, and also to take it one step further, he also had the balance. Dan had that ability in almost any situation under duress to set his feet properly, get in a good position to throw the football. That's the quickness of feet that Dan had, to make plays with his feet by setting himself up to throw the football.
The bottom line was simply this. If you wanted to see how quarterback should be played in its purest, most elemental form, you watch Dan Marino, the best passer the game has ever seen. His passes were like gifts from some lesser god, the work of some divine creature, unimpressed with his own talent.
He'll make a great throw in practice. Everybody else will go wild about it. He'll just turn around like it's expected. You know, like what else do you expect from me? I'm Dan Marino.
Although his talent seemed boundless, his patience was not. Dan Marino literally twitched as he awaited his next throw.
John Sandusky, the offensive line coach who was in charge of the running game, would get up there and start drawing all the running plays up in the situation we're going to use them. And at that point, Dan would kind of lose his interest and, be picking on his sunflower seeds and spitting them on the table and kind of not paying a whole lot of attention. Ski would go, "Come on, Dan, pay attention to these runs. We're going to have to use them in this game." And Dan says, "Don't worry, Ski, we'll get to those after my 40 passes."
One time we're playing the Rams in Anaheim, and Dickerson was running up and down the field on us, and they were up by 21 or 28. And Coach Shula, he was calling more running plays than I felt he should have been calling at the time. So when I just told everybody in the huddle, I said, "Listen, we're going to throw it every down until we get ahead. And we're not running another running play until we get ahead and win this game." And that's what we did. Even if he called a running play, I'd just change it at the line to a pass. And we ended up tying it up, and we won in overtime. And then after we got ahead, we'd run some running plays.
Marino played his best when it mattered most, and no game was bigger than this Monday night showdown against the Bears.
You could just feel the electricity in the stands. The people were there early, and you could feel the buzz, the excitement. And our players knew the importance of the ball game because Chicago was very, very good, and we knew that if we didn't do it, that somebody else might not do it.
Playing for history, Marino didn't disappoint.
Marino always would recognize where the free blitzer would be coming from. Nat Moore would break his route off, knowing that Dan wouldn't have a lot of time, and then Fensick or Plank would have to make the tackle on Nat Moore in an open field. And that game plan worked to perfection.
The Bears were sacking everybody, free blitzers and so forth and so on. And I was looking at now, how do I protect? How do we protect our passer against the situation? And I was thinking run the ball, some try to get on the outside and so forth. But Dan kind of looked at it a little differently, and he kind of helped me too with that situation. Dwight, this offense is perfect for us. We know where the blitzer is coming from. We know where the free man is coming from. We can block the guys on the inside. Mark Clayton and Duper, he felt were capable of beating the one-on-one, and that we would get with that, and that we would come up with some big plays. And that Monday night, that's exactly what happened.
The Dolphins win preserved the 1972 legacy as the league's only team to achieve a perfect season.
Back he goes to throw. Under pressure. Ball is deflected in the air. Caught by Quick. 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Miami. They're lucky and good.
But while Dan Marino's 147 regular season wins is the second highest total in league history, even Dan Marino's magic wasn't always enough to bring Miami victory.
For a quarterback, it was a fun game to be in because of, it was just drop back and throwing it every play.
It proved as frustrating as it was dynamic. For every time that Marino scored, the Jets would answer in kind.
What kills you is, you throw the ball all day and you're making big plays, and it came down with about a minute and a half left, and we tried to run it 3 times to get a first down. We end up putting and giving them the ball back.
O'Brien throwing long down the sideline for Walker, and he got it! Touchdown!
In many ways, that effort epitomized Marino's career. His awe-inspiring play was a weekly certainty, even if victory was not.
Here's the play fake, moves to his right, looks, fires deep, man open, Clayton, 10, 5, touchdown Dolphins.
His passes were so good, so perfect, that their excellence became almost an article of faith, an axiom so basic, it became taken for granted.
Here's the snap. He looks. He fires for the corner of the end zone. Touchdown for the Dolphins goes to Mark Ingram.
But then, how does one put the nonpareil into perspective? Marino holds 25 NFL records and another 38 team marks. He threw touchdown passes to 80 different receivers, while his 61,000 passing yards is equivalent to more than 5 trips to the top of Mount Everest.
Snap to Dan, back he goes to throw, in the pocket, deep up the middle, man down there, Jackson, touchdown! What a catch!
those numbers are so staggering that only because he achieved them do we believe they could be achieved. Dan Marino didn't play quarterback. He transformed the position into an art form, an aerial symphony conducted with the unabashed joy and originality of genius.
Dan Marino becomes the all-time leader in pass completions in NFL history, and before this season is over, he will own every record known to man.
Dan takes the snap from center. He's straight back, throws for Byers to the right side, sliding, breaks the tackle. He's in! Touchdown, Dolphins! And Dan Marino, with that touchdown, has broken another record. He has the granddaddy of them all now. Most touchdown passes ever.
Throwing on the slant, complete to McDuffie at the goal line. He's in! Touchdown, Dolphins! And that is also career touchdown pass number 400 for Dan Marino.
Team comes together, a lot of backslapping. Fans here recognize Dan Marino's career accomplishment. What a joy it has been to watch that man play football.
I've been in the zone for a whole decade.
All his football stuff is awesome. You know, he's a legend, but just knowing Danny outside of football, you know, that's what I remember most instead of all his football accolades. To see Danny with his family it's so much fun. You know, to see him hanging out with his kids, and they're such good kids that, you know, he doesn't have a lot to worry about with them, you know. But it is fun to watch him interact with his family.
Good job. You gotta watch, that's pretty soft these days.
He's a great family guy that, you know, family is very, very important to him. And I think that's really special about Dan.
Dan and Claire Marino met shortly after Dan graduated from college and married in 1985. They had 4 children, but wanted more. Thus began the fairy tale story of the 5th Marino child, little Nikki Lynn.
We wanted to have another girl, and we discussed it for a long time. And we thought, you know, it could be a positive influence not only on our lives and our family, but on some little child's life.
Their search took them to China, where families are penalized for having more than one child. And since there is a strong preference for boys in China's culture, baby girls are abandoned by the millions. When Dan and Claire learned that a child was available, it was the middle of the football season.
They said they had found a little girl, very healthy, they told me. They would fax a picture of her to us, but that they needed an answer very quickly. So overnight we had to make a decision, and we chose, you know, to go ahead with Nikki, so off I went to China. I was very worried if I was going to feel the same way for her that I feel for my other kids. It really worried me. And I saw her, and I remember just the first thing I said is, she's so beautiful. And to be honest, she was really sort of, she didn't look so great, you know. I mean, she was, had some sores and some things on her, and but I remember thinking she was so beautiful, and she was so tiny, you know. And it was just, you know, she was mine, that was it.
Talking to Claire once she got back into this country, when she got into Los Angeles, and saying that it was a tough trip, but knowing that she was back, and she said everything was great, it made it a little bit easier, I think, when I first saw her. But just, you know, just noticing how beautiful she was, and I think that the other thing was seeing how excited Claire was about the whole thing, I think helped the whole moment.
I can tell by his face. I could just tell by his face that we had made the right decision, and that he felt for her just like I did 10 days earlier when I first saw her. I could tell.
I think after she got here and everybody recognized the circumstances that she was coming from, and that she could be a part of this family very easily, that it went real well, and everybody seemed to be adapting very well to it.
I think that one of your biggest fears through the whole thing is that someday you wonder, when she's 16, is she going to turn to me and say, like, you know, Mom, why did you take me from China? You know, that's where I was born. Or is she going to turn to me and say, thank you? You know, I don't know. And you hope that you're doing the right thing I think especially with a child from another country, because you're taking them from their heritage. So, time will tell.
So far, the story of Nicky Lynn has had a heartwarming ending, but the Marino family has known its share of heartache as well. It started when Dan's son, Michael, was diagnosed as autistic.
Mike is, he's an incredible story, really. He was diagnosed when he was 2 years old, and we caught it real early, and he had early intervention, and we were able to give him a lot of the things that he needed early on to help develop.
Children with autism and PDD have a lot of difficulty functioning in our world. They have no language, and they have no ability to approach others because the social component is missing as well.
You see that you have problems in your family or whatever it may be, and other children, and you want to try to help and give back, and that's what we're trying to do.
We need more people like Dan Marino. He's really come out and spoken out against this disorder and has really tried to help in research and raising money.
For Michael and other children like him, Dan has gone a step further, establishing the Dan Marino Foundation, dedicated to raising funds for children's charities.
The foundation is there because I want to give back to help people that have helped me in this community. I have a relationship with this community for 16 years, and there's some things that we do where we can give back.
Dan's most groundbreaking achievement to date is the Miami Children's Hospital Dan Marino Center, which offers comprehensive health care to children with chronic medical needs.
Do the things that are necessary to be a good person and to help others if you have the opportunity, and to try to treat others like you want to be treated. And I think if you can do that, you'll do a lot of good things for people in life.
Just a good quality person that's a credit to the NFL and a credit to society in general. It's my opinion, but I'm his father. But what I'm most proud of him is the same as I'm proud of my other children. They're just quality people, and the bottom line is that's what living's about.
Nothing safe with Dan Marino on the other sideline.
Some believe that Dan Marino's defining moment came in a regular season game against the New York Jets. He closed the lead to 3 points, then in the last minute drove the Dolphins toward the tying field goal.
With 32, 31, 30 seconds to go, I believe Marino is saying, I'm going to spike it.
But the kick was never needed.
He's looking, he throws.
The fake spike proved that Marino was most lethal as soon as a defense dropped its guard.
It used to be that, if you had 30 seconds left, it was almost hopeless. I've seen him take a team 80 yards in 16 seconds. Nobody pushed the clock the way he did.
Steps out to the right side, throws into the end zone, and it is caught! It's a touchdown! Touchdown, Dolphins!
We never ever felt like we had to panic. We felt that if we got the ball with some time on the clock, that we were capable of scoring a touchdown.
His 37 fourth-quarter comebacks ranked second, only to John Elway's 43.
You have to have that ultimate confidence in yourself and believe that you can pull anything off at any time.
No situation was ever hopeless as long as Dan was in command.
It's always the same game. It's the late game on TV, the wind is swirling, and the Dolphins are down, and you figure it's over. And Marino's back there just methodically. He's not usually throwing the 60-yard pass. He's not handing off. He's just sort of methodically, quicker than you ever could have imagined, taking his team down the field and into the end zone.
On the snap, quick drop, goes out. It is knocked down. And caught.
When you look at his eyes in the fourth quarter, when you know the game's on the line, you know how into it he is and how much he's ready to win this game for us.
Marino takes the snap. He's looking, throwing into the end zone. Oh, Jay McNally! He made a catch! It's a touchdown, Dolphins!
Even at the end of his career, miracles were still Marino's specialty.
3rd down and 17 now for the Dolphins from their own 9-yard line. 3-man rush by Seattle. Dan looks, he fires far side, and a great catch is made at the 32-yard line.
How magnificent was that?
As he'd done 36 times before, Dan led the Dolphins downfield with precision and grace.
Awesome! Simply awesome! 1st down Miami at the 5-yard line.
It was fitting that Marino's final win came with a comeback, as his tenacity. Dan Marino never left the field without leaving a piece of himself behind. He played the game as only a true legend could, with the heart of a champion.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling.
Gigantic play for the Dolphins here. He's looking his time, throws into the end zone. Keith Jackson has it.
And down the mountainside, the summer's gone, and all the roses falling. It's you must go and I must cry. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow.
Play of the game, perhaps, for Miami.
Or when the valleys hushed and white with snow. I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow. And white with snow. I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy.
Fans here recognize Dan Marino's career accomplishment. What a joy it has been.